The clinking of fine crystal echoed through the vast empty spaces of Pierce Ashton's mansion as he fumbled with a tray of expensive glasses, nearly sending them crashing to the marble floor. At 32, Pierce had everything money could buy, except someone to help maintain his sprawling estate. The resignation of his last housekeeper left him in a bind, a successful investment banker with a 15,000-square-foot home and not a clue how to keep it from descending into chaos. "Damn it," he muttered, steadying the tray before setting it down on his Italian marble countertop. Pierce ran his fingers through his dark hair, surveying the growing disarray around him. Dirty dishes piled in the sink, mail scattered across various surfaces, and dust beginning to settle on his prized art collection. He grabbed his phone and made a call. "Sandra, cancel my meetings today. I need to find a new house cleaner. This place is becoming unlivable." His assistant's voice came through with a suggestion about a cleaning service that specialized in high-end properties. "Perfect. Set it up immediately." By that afternoon, the doorbell rang. Pierce strode through his grand foyer, past the sweeping staircase, and opened the double doors to find a woman in simple but neat attire standing on his doorstep. "Good afternoon. Magnolia Cleaning Services. I'm Megan Davidson," she said with a professional smile, extending her hand. Pierce was momentarily taken aback. He'd expected an older woman or perhaps a team of cleaners. Instead, Megan appeared to be in her late 20s, with honey blonde hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and intelligent hazel eyes that assessed him without being intimidated by his wealth. "Pierce Ashton," he replied, shaking her hand firmly. "Come in." Megan stepped inside, and Pierce noticed how her eyes widened slightly at the grandeur of his home. The soaring ceilings, the custom chandelier that had cost more than most cars, and the expansive views of the city below through floor-to-ceiling windows. "This is quite a place," she commented, setting down her bag of supplies. "How long has it been without regular maintenance?" 3 weeks, Pierce admitted. "My last housekeeper quit rather suddenly." Megan nodded, already scanning the areas most in need of attention. "I'll need to do a walk-through to give you an accurate quote for the initial deep clean. After that, we can discuss regular maintenance." Pierce led her through the house, becoming increasingly aware of its disarray as they moved from room to room. The home theater with popcorn still in the crevices of the custom leather recliners. The gym with towels strewn about, the 4 guest bedrooms he rarely used. His massive primary suite with its rumpled bedding and clothes draped over chairs. "You live here alone, Mr. Ashton?" Megan asked, making notes on a small tablet. "Yes, and please call me Pierce." Megan looked up from her tablet. "That's a lot of house for one person." There was no judgment in her voice, just a simple observation, but it made Pierce pause. He'd bought the mansion after his company's IPO 2 years ago, seeing it as the natural progression of his success. Yet in that moment, through Megan's eyes, he suddenly felt the emptiness of it all. "I suppose it is," he replied, "but it's an investment as much as a home." Megan gave a small smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Of course." They finished the tour in his home office, where financial reports and prospectuses were stacked in precarious piles. "I'll need to know which papers can be organized and which cannot be touched," she said. "I'll clear the sensitive materials before your scheduled cleaning days," Pierce replied, impressed by her thoroughness. Megan quoted him a price that seemed reasonable for the size of the property, and they agreed on twice-weekly cleaning sessions. "I can start the deep clean tomorrow if that works for you." "That would be perfect," Pierce said, walking her back to the foyer. "I have meetings, so I'll leave you a key with the security guard at the gate." As she was leaving, Megan turned back. "Just one more thing, Pierce. This is your home. If there are any specific ways you like things done, please let me know. I'm here to make your space feel right for you, not just to make it look perfect for others." The comment caught him off guard. None of his previous housekeepers had ever expressed such consideration for his preferences. They'd simply cleaned according to standard protocols. "I'll think about that," he said. After she left, Pierce found himself contemplating her words. What did make a space feel right for him? He delegated so many aspects of his personal life to others that he hardly knew his own preferences anymore. The next morning, Pierce left for his office after giving security instructions about Megan's arrival. Throughout his day of meetings and conference calls, he found his thoughts drifting to the state of his home and, unexpectedly, to the thoughtful house cleaner working there. When Pierce returned that evening, he paused with his key in the lock, unsure what to expect. Opening the door, he was met with a transformation. The air smelled fresh but not overpowering with cleaning products. The marble floors gleamed, the chrome fixtures sparkled, and every surface had been meticulously attended to. But it wasn't just clean, it felt different. Moving through the rooms, Pierce noticed that while everything had been organized, nothing felt sterile or impersonal. His books had been dusted and arranged, but not in the rigid alphabetical system his previous housekeeper had insisted upon. Instead, they were grouped in a way that seemed to reflect how he used them. The throw blanket on his living room couch was folded but draped casually, as if inviting him to use it. On the kitchen counter sat a note. "The deep clean is complete. I've organized things based on what seemed practical, but please let me know if you'd prefer any adjustments." Megan Pierce found himself smiling at the note. He couldn't remember the last time someone had considered what he might actually prefer rather than what convention dictated. Over the next few weeks, Megan became a fixture in his life twice a week. Though their interactions were brief, Pierce began to look forward to the days she was scheduled to clean. He started making sure he was home for at least part of her visits, ostensibly to address any questions she might have, but increasingly because he enjoyed their conversations. One afternoon, Pierce arrived home earlier than usual to find Megan in his kitchen. Her cleaning temporarily paused as she examined a particularly complex coffee machine with a perplexed expression. "Need some help with that?" he asked, setting down his briefcase. Megan jumped slightly. "Oh. I didn't hear you come in," she gestured to the machine. "I was trying to clean around it, but I'm afraid of moving something important," Pierce laughed. "I barely know how to use it myself. It was a gift from a client." He moved beside her and pointed out the removable parts. Their hands brushed as he demonstrated, and he noticed a slight flush rise to her cheeks. "You actually like coffee from this thing?" she asked, her voice lightening the moment Pierce considered the question. "Honestly, I prefer the little coffee shop 3 blocks down. They make a simple pour-over that puts this technological monster to shame." Megan's smile widened. "Magnolia Brews, that's my favorite place too." "You're kidding," Pierce said, genuinely surprised by the coincidence. "Not at all. Their blueberry scones are worth the extra 30 minutes on the treadmill." Pierce found himself chuckling. "I've never tried their food. I'm always rushing back to the office." Megan's expression grew thoughtful. "That's a shame. Some things shouldn't be rushed." Their conversation shifted to other topics, how she'd started her cleaning business 3 years ago after leaving a corporate job that left her unfulfilled. How she was taking night classes in interior design. How she found satisfaction in creating order and comfort in people's lives. Pierce found himself sharing more than he usually did with anyone: his workaholic tendencies, the pressure of maintaining his success, his disconnection from the simpler pleasures in life. "It sounds like you need a vacation," Megan observed as she finished wiping down the kitchen counters. "I haven't taken more than a long weekend in 5 years, Pierce admitted. "Then you're overdue," she replied simply. Later that night, lying in his perfectly made bed, Pierce couldn't stop thinking about their conversation. He reached for his phone and, on impulse, sent a message to his assistant. "Clear my schedule for next Friday. I'm taking a day off." The following Thursday, Megan arrived for her regular cleaning day. Pierce was working from home, ostensibly catching up on reports, but actually enjoying the quiet comfort of having her presence in the house. When she came to clean his office, he surprised himself by asking, "What time do you finish tomorrow?" Megan looked up from dusting his bookshelves. "Around 3. Why? I'm taking the day off, and I thought maybe you'd like to join me for coffee at Magnolia Brews afterward, so I can finally try those famous scones." He watched as several emotions crossed her face: surprise, hesitation, and then a careful smile. "That would be nice, but..." Are you sure that's appropriate? I work for you. Pierce hadn't considered that perspective. You're an independent business owner providing a service, not my employee, but if you're uncomfortable with the idea, no, Megan interrupted. It's not that. I just wouldn't want to blur lines in a way that might make our professional relationship awkward. Fair point, Pierce nodded. How about this tomorrow is strictly social, no discussion of cleaning schedules or household matters, just two people who happen to frequent the same coffee shop. Megan tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, considering his proposition. Okay, she finally agreed. 3:15 at Magnolia Brews. The next day, Pierce felt an unfamiliar nervousness as he waited at a small corner table in the coffee shop. He dressed casually in jeans, and a soft gray sweater clothes his image consultant would have frowned upon for being too ordinary. Megan arrived precisely on time, and Pierce was struck by the transformation. Out of her work clothes, she wore a simple blue dress with a light cardigan, her hair falling in loose waves around her shoulders. She looked relaxed, beautiful in an understated way that contrasted sharply with the polished, glamorous women he typically dated. You look different, he said as she sat down. So do you, she replied with a small laugh. No three-piece suit today, I'm incognito, he joked. My business associates might not recognize me without Italian wool and a power tie. They ordered a pour-over coffee and blueberry scone for each of them, and fell into conversation that flowed more easily than Pierce had anticipated. He learned that Megan had grown up in a small town 3 hours away, that she had an older brother who worked as a firefighter, that she'd started cleaning houses to pay for college, and discovered she had a knack for it. Most people think cleaning is just about making things look nice, she explained, breaking off a piece of her scone. But it's really about understanding how people live in their spaces and helping those spaces serve them better. Is that why my house feels different since you started? Pierce asked. It's clean, but it's also more, I don't know, comfortable somehow. Megan nodded, looking pleased. I pay attention to the details that tell me how you actually use your home, like how you always have a glass of water by your bed so I leave a fresh carafe each time. Or how you tend to read in that chair by the window, so I make sure the light there is good and there's always a coaster nearby. Pierce was surprised by how closely she'd observed his habits. I never realized anyone noticed those things. That's my job, she said, but her smile suggested it was more than professional attention. Their coffee date stretched to nearly 2 hours. As they were leaving, Pierce found himself reluctant to end their time together. Would you like to get dinner sometime? He asked as they stood outside the coffee shop. Still strictly social, of course. Megan hesitated. Pierce, I've enjoyed this, but I have to be honest. I'm not sure dating a client is a good idea, especially one with your resources, my resources, he repeated, confused. You're clearly very wealthy. I'm building a small business and taking classes. Our worlds are very different. Pierce felt a stab of disappointment. Does that matter? It might, she said gently. I've worked in enough wealthy households to know there's often a divide that's difficult to bridge. Pierce wanted to argue but respected her perspective. I understand, but for what it's worth, I've enjoyed talking with you more than any date I've had in years. Megan's expression softened. I've enjoyed it too. Maybe we could be friends? Friends, Pierce agreed, though he felt an unfamiliar pang at the limitation. In the weeks that followed, they established a new rhythm. Megan continued her cleaning schedule, but Pierce made a point of being home during her visits. They'd share coffee in his kitchen after she finished, carefully maintaining the professional boundary she'd established while nurturing their growing friendship. Pierce found himself opening up to Megan in ways he never had with anyone else. He told her about growing up with parents who equated success with wealth, about the pressure he felt to continually prove himself, about the emptiness he sometimes felt despite all his achievements. In turn, Megan shared her dreams of eventually transitioning from cleaning to interior design, her love for creating spaces that reflected the personalities of their inhabitants, her belief that true comfort came from authenticity rather than luxury. One evening, after Megan had left, Pierce wandered through his immaculate home feeling a strange discontent. The house was perfectly maintained, yet it still didn't feel fully like his. On impulse, he called a realtor friend. "Jack, I'm thinking about selling the mansion." His friend's surprise was evident. "What? Why, that place is the ultimate bachelor pad." "That's just it," Pierce said, the realization crystallizing as he spoke. "It's never felt like home, it's felt like a statement." The next day, Pierce asked Megan to meet him for coffee after work at a different cafe, neutral territory. When she arrived, he could see the curiosity in her eyes. "What's going on?" she asked as she slid into the booth across from him. "I've decided to sell my house," Pierce announced. Megan's eyebrows shot up. "Really? Why?" "Because you were right. It's too much house for one person, and it doesn't reflect who I am, just who I thought I should be." "What will you get instead?" "I don't know yet, but I was hoping you might help me find something that actually feels like home." Pierce hesitated before adding, as a paid consultant, of course, "Your design expertise, not your cleaning services." Megan studied him for a long moment. "Are you sure that's what you want?" "I'm sure I want your input," Pierce said honestly. "You understand spaces in a way I don't." After some consideration, Megan agreed. Over the following weekends, they visited properties together: luxury condos with city views, historic brownstones with character, modern townhomes with smart technology. Pierce watched as Megan assessed each space not just for its aesthetic value but for how it might suit his lifestyle. "This one feels too sterile," she'd say about one. "You need warmth." Or, "This layout would work well for how you like to entertain, but the home office is an afterthought." During these outings, their relationship gradually shifted. Away from his mansion and her role as its caretaker, they related as equals with complementary perspectives. Pierce found himself admiring not just Megan's insight but her integrity, her humor, her steadfast commitment to authenticity. One Saturday, they visited a penthouse that Pierce was particularly drawn to. It had a spectacular view of the city's skyline, but also warm wooden floors, a functional yet elegant kitchen, and a layout that flowed naturally. "What do you think?" he asked as they stood by the windows, the afternoon sun casting a golden glow across the space. "I think it could be perfect for you," Megan said. "It's luxurious without being showy, practical but still special." Pierce turned to look at her profile as she gazed out at the view. "I've realized something during this process," he said quietly. Megan looked at him, a question in her eyes. "The more time I spend with you, the more I understand that a home isn't just about the space, it's about how you feel in it. And I feel most at home when I'm with you." Megan's breath caught and Pierce saw the conflict in her expression. "Pierce, I know you're concerned about our different worlds," he continued. "But these past few months have shown me that what matters isn't where we come from or what we own, it's who we choose to be and what we value." "It's not that simple," Megan replied, though her voice had softened. "Your life comes with expectations, social circles, pressures I've never experienced." "You're right," Pierce acknowledged, "but I've never been happier than when I'm just being myself with you. No pretenses, no status symbols, just us talking about what really matters." Megan was quiet for a long moment. "I care about you," she finally admitted, "more than I should for a client." Pierce took a chance and reached for her hand. "Then maybe it's time I wasn't your client anymore." The real estate agent chose that moment to check on them, and the conversation paused. But something had shifted between them, an acknowledgement of feelings that had been growing beneath the surface of their friendship. After purchasing the penthouse, Pierce asked Megan to help him design the interior not as a cleaning professional, but as the emerging designer she aspired to be. It was a project that required close collaboration, frequent meetings, and honest conversations about what truly mattered to him in a home. Working together on the apartment gave them a context to explore their connection without the imbalance of their previous arrangement. Megan's confidence grew as Pierce trusted her vision, and Pierce found joy in creating a space that genuinely reflected who he was rather than what was expected of a man in his position. The day the apartment was finally finished, Pierce invited Megan over for a private dinner to celebrate. He'd arranged for a chef to prepare the meal but sent them away before Megan arrived, wanting the evening to be just the two of them. When Megan entered, she gasped at the transformation. The penthouse was illuminated by soft lighting, with every detail they'd selected together now in perfect harmony, the comfortable yet elegant furniture. The carefully curated art collection featuring local artists she'd introduced him to, the warm textiles and natural elements that balanced the urban view. "It's beautiful," she breathed, turning slowly to take it all in. "Even better than I imagined." "It's exactly what I wanted," Pierce said, handing her a glass of champagne, "a place that feels authentically mine." They enjoyed dinner at the custom-made table they'd commissioned from a craftsman Megan knew, talking easily about their shared journey from employer and service provider to collaborators and friends. As the evening drew to a close, they stood together on the balcony, looking out at the glittering city lights. "Thank you," Pierce said, turning to face her. "Not just for helping with the apartment, but for showing me what matters. Before I met you, I was surrounded by things but disconnected from purpose." Megan's eyes softened in the gentle light. "You've changed too. The man I first met wouldn't have recognized what he really wanted in a home or in life." Pierce took a deep breath. "Megan, I need to be clear about something. I don't want our professional relationship to end with this project, but I don't want to be just friends either." He watched as she processed his words, her expression a mixture of hope and hesitation. "I've been holding back because of our different circumstances," she admitted. "But these months working together have shown me who you truly are beyond your wealth, and that's the man I've fallen for." Pierce felt his heart soar at her confession. "So where does that leave us?" "At the beginning," Megan said with a small smile. "Of whatever comes next." Pierce reached out, gently drawing her closer. "I like the sound of that." Their first kiss was tender, a promise of the connection they'd built and the potential that lay ahead. When they finally parted, Megan's eyes were bright with emotion. "You know," she said, "when I started cleaning your mansion, I never imagined we'd end up here." Pierce laughed softly. "When I hired a house cleaner, I was just looking for someone to keep the dust at bay. I never expected you'd clean up my priorities too." Over the next year, their relationship deepened as they navigated the challenges. Megan had anticipated the raised eyebrows from Pierce's business associates, the occasional discomfort at social events where wealth was flaunted, the learning curve of merging their different worlds. But they found their rhythm. Pierce scaled back his work hours to make room for what truly mattered. Megan completed her interior design certification and began building a client base, her talent quickly earning recognition independent of her relationship with Pierce. They supported each other's growth, Pierce investing in Megan's design firm as a silent partner, Megan encouraging Pierce to use his resources for community impact rather than status symbols. Together, they launched a foundation providing housing assistance and job training for single parents. 18 months after that first coffee date, Pierce proposed on the balcony of their penthouse home. 6 months later, they married in a ceremony that reflected their shared values, meaningful rather than extravagant, intimate rather than showy, with touches of luxury balanced by authentic warmth. On their first anniversary, they sat together on their balcony, Megan's head resting on Pierce's shoulder as they watched the sunset cast golden light across the city. "Do you ever think about how we met?" Pierce asked, his fingers interlaced with hers. "You mean how I judged your excessive mansion and poor housekeeping skills?" Megan teased. "And how I was so caught up in appearances that I couldn't see what was missing," Pierce added. "Who would have thought a house cleaning service would change my life?" Megan turned to face him, her expression serious despite her smile. "It wasn't the cleaning that changed things. It was you being willing to see your life differently, to value substance over status." "With some help from a very insightful woman who wasn't impressed by my bank account," Pierce acknowledged. "I fell in love with the man who wanted his home to reflect who he really was," Megan said. "The one who asked questions about what matters instead of just accumulating more." Pierce kissed her gently. "And I fell in love with the woman who showed me that true richness comes from authenticity, not acquisitions." As the last rays of sunlight faded, they remained together, secure in the knowledge that they had built something far more valuable than wealth could measure, a partnership based on mutual respect, shared values, and genuine love. The millionaire and the house cleaner had created a life that neither could have imagined separately, proving that sometimes the most unexpected encounters lead to the most perfect matches. Their story became a favorite among their friends, how a woman hired to tidy up a mansion had instead helped its owner clean up his priorities and open his heart. And how in doing so, they'd both found the home they truly wanted, not just in a physical space, but in each other.